welcome back to the Witch's Cauldron. My name's Paula. Today's subject, I was originally going to try and do all of this in one video, but I think I'm going to have to break it down into 3 shorter videos. And I kind of hate to do that, but I don't want to be sitting here for an hour and a half on one subject, because I know most people will tune out after about 10 or 15 minutes. And what I'm going to talk about is defensive magic. Now, defensive magic in Paula's little brain comes down to 2 great big main categories. Passive, which is like wards and protections in general, and then active. This is something where you know that there is a specific threat and you take action to counteract that threat. That threat can come from spirit, it can come from another individual or another person, or it can come from another magical practitioner. It can come from what I call, energy sappers or psychic vampires. So you're probably sitting here wondering, what the heck? The bottom line is to curse or not to curse. And to start off, what I want to do to be able to answer that question, I want everybody to consider a logical path to follow before you make decisions to take a particular action against someone else, okay? I'm going to start off with saying, don't do anything in the esoteric or the magical realm that you would not do in your everyday mundane life, okay? I'm also going to say that the Wiccan Rede, most people get hung up on 8 words, and it harm none, do as ye will. If you take that as the entire meaning behind the Wiccan Rede, there are many, many stanzas to the Wiccan Rede, and those 8 words are a very, very small part of the Wiccan Rede. And read in and of itself means counsel or advice, okay? It is not a hard, fast rule, all right? There are a couple of other parts of the Rede that really need to speak to you as a Wiccan. The first being fairly take and fairly give. Okay, this means that in your interactions every day, you give out, but yet you also receive. And if there is an imbalance there between taking and giving, and if you're doing all the giving and somebody else is doing all the taking, you need to take action on that, okay? Another part of the Rede is the threefold law. All right, and everybody kind of likens it to karma. I'm not really going to call it karma, but okay, we can use that term if people are more comfortable with it. It's kind of like the golden rule for Christians: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Okay. But the threefold, be ever mindful of the law of 3. That if you take, and what that means is if you take an action, a negative action, that it can come back on you 3 times over. All right. If you, as a magical practitioner, decide that you're okay with that, then do what you got to do. All right. let's have a discussion. In my mundane world, okay, I am a retired fire marshal. In my state, fire marshals are sworn law enforcement officers, in addition to, their duties as being, an inspector or an investigator, whatever position you're in, and whatever your training allows. My better half is an active duty sheriff. We have both been trained in self-defense tactics and escalation of force and use of force. Let's just say if anyone broke into my home, I would take the appropriate level of force that I need to extinguish the threat or deal with that threat. If I feel like my life is in danger or the life of my better half is in danger, I'm going to take appropriate action. And I like to say that if you threaten me, break into my home, invade my domain, that you will go out one of two ways, in a body bag or in handcuffs. And I'm not going to be too particular about which way it is. That person's actions will determine how they leave the situation. I know not everybody would be comfortable defending themselves to the point that they would take another life. I understand that. That is your moral compass. That is the way that you think. And you are allowed to think the way you think, just as I am allowed to think the way that I think. My magical practice is no different, okay? I still call myself a Wiccan. I still call myself a witch. I am not ashamed of either term. As a Wiccan, I realize that if I take, just as if I take action in my own home and deal with a threat, and I take the life of someone who has invaded my home because I felt that my life was in danger, I am willing to face the law of the land and then serve any consequences that may come with that action. All right? I live in a stand your ground state. And that means that I have the right to defend my domicile if I feel like I'm threatened, that my life is threatened. Okay? It is no different with my magic. If I take a threat and deal with it in the magical realm, I am willing to receive any consequences for my actions that the divine and the universe deem fit for them. If that means there is none because I acted justly, then that is what the divine has judged. If I receive some kind of kickback or consequence for my action, then I'm okay with that. Just as I would be okay facing a jury of my peers in the legal system of the United States for defending myself when I am afraid for my life. Okay? I know that there are different levels of what you would be willing to go through. The Wiccan Rede. Let's say you're a parent, okay? And you are at the park with your child, or any child that you care about. And you see someone try to convince your child to get into a car with them, and so that, you know, they could take them for ice cream somewhere. Are you going to sit there and do nothing, or are you going to take action? Okay? If someone was trying to harm your child, would you sit there and do nothing? Or would you fight with every inch of your life to keep your child safe? Or the life of another child safe? Stop and think about that. Are you actually going to stand by and watch someone harm a child and do nothing because you don't want to harm them, and it harm none, do as ye will? I'm posing that question to you. I do not know of many people who would watch a child be harmed and to take no action whatsoever. Even if it's calling the police, even if it's, going after someone, if someone tried to rip your child out of your arms, wouldn't you fight back with every inch of your being to protect your child? I would. So for Wiccans to say that they would never do harm, that was not the intent of the Rede. The Rede says, okay, if you don't harm anybody, do whatever. Okay, fine. But it also says fairly take, fairly give. In other words, there's an equal balance. And then ever mind the law of three. Be mindful of the law of three. So if you are willing to take consequences for your actions in the legal realm, in the mundane world, then you should be okay with taking the judgment of the divine and the universe to mete out any punishment or consequence for your magical actions. Okay? So there is the dilemma. I don't want people to just assume that Wiccans are doormats, because they're not. That Wiccan Rede was not written to make you be a doormat so that everybody can walk all over you because, oh, I can't harm anybody. I can't cause any harm. If you walk outside and step on a blade of grass, you are causing harm, because we are all connected by that divine universal energy. You are part of the elements are part of you, the divine is part of you, you are part of the divine. We're all connected. So if you step on a blade of grass and bend it, you've caused harm. It is a proven fact that plants, when they are under attack, secrete a hormone that says, I'm under attack. And it goes from, like a growing phase to a healing phase. Let's say a bug starts chewing on them. And then it warns the other plants around them that they are under attack. And those plants start secreting that same, I'm going to call it, I don't know if it was an enzyme or a hormone. I think it was an enzyme of some kind. But you get the picture that if plants have the sentience to react to an attack and then put a defensive measure up, why is it not okay for a Wiccan to do the same thing? Even if we drink water, we can cause harm to the environment because we're depleting it. There's not fresh water available everywhere. Like, in the U.S. where I am, we're on city water. You turn on the tap and there it goes, But where I'm from originally, we were a lot more judicious with our water usage. Because you had to haul it up from the well in a bucket. We didn't even have a hand pump. We had no plumbing inside at my grandmother's house. So you were a lot more judicious and conservative with the way you treated water, okay? Because you didn't want your well to dry up. So you cannot walk through life without causing harm of any kind, okay? I think that that is an unreasonable standard for any Wiccan to throw out. And to say that, oh, well, I'm Wiccan, I can't cause harm, that's not true. You do. When you reap the herbs that you work with, you've caused harm. When you take the gemstones and you work with them, you've caused harm because it's removed from its environment. You've removed that element from its natural state to work with it. You're harnessing that energy for your benefit to do something else. So when you break it down to the most base things, you can see right off the bat that the Wiccan Rede does not mean that you can't cause harm in any way, because us as humans, just even being here, causes harm to the environment. We are what we are. So to say that magically you can cause no harm, I don't believe that that was the intent of the Rede. The Rede has several stanzas. You need to read the entire thing. You need to read the Rede in its entirety and to understand it. I'm going to break down. I know this is very, very controversial because a lot of people say, well, Paula, you've done blood magic, so you're a black witch. Here are the circumstances of me having performed blood magic. Number one, it was my own damn blood. And it was a drop done with a sterile lancet that you would use to test sugar, glucose in your blood. I had found out that my grandniece's father had taken her and loaded her up in the car while my niece was at work, working night shift as a nurse. He took their 5-month-old baby, put her in the car seat, and went into the city to buy heroin. And then he proceeded to come back home, light up a cigarette, shoot up, and nod off with the lit cigarette. And he actually caught the chair that he was sitting in on fire. It was not the first time that he had done that. And when I found out about it, I almost lost my mind, because the lungs of an infant cannot handle a lot of smoke. I know that from my background in the fire department. All right? I decided to take action. I did a spell with the goddess Kali, who is a protector of children. Everybody thinks she's this nasty, nasty dark goddess. And when you break down what Kali is, a destroyer, but she brings truth to the light. She brings people to swift justice, and she is a protector of children. When you think of Kali in that phase, instead of Kali the destroyer, Kali of the underworld, you think of her in her aspect as a protector of children and bringing the truth to light and meting out swift justice. That is perfect. That she is the perfect goddess to work with when you're dealing with abuse of a child and neglect of a child and the lack of consideration for the child that her father had. When I did this spell, I asked Kali to bring all those who could harm that child, through their actions, to have her bright light of justice and truth bring the truth out to the proper authority, bring the perpetrator to swift justice, and to protect that child so that no harm would come to her until she became an adult, to where she could defend herself. Blood of my blood, bone of my bone. I offered my own blood to seal that spell with Kali. Within 6 months, this child's father had been arrested for driving under the influence of drugs, a total of 4 times. And it actually was his 5th DUI. He had had 1 prior. And on his 5th DUI, within 2 years, it's an automatic jail sentence in my state. And he spent 22 months at a state prison for DUI. I did not direct my spell to him. I said, bring whoever is doing wrong to this child or endangering this child, bring their actions to light so that the authorities could act on it. My niece also was arrested for DUI for driving drunk. And my niece was in the back seat in her car seat. That was her 2nd DUI, and she almost lost her license as a nurse. She had to go through a lot of stuff, a lot of counseling, meetings and everything. So because I felt comfortable doing that spell, because I didn't direct it at anyone in particular, and it ended up getting 2 people, both of her parents, who had endangered her with their substance abuse issues. They were both brought to justice. Do I feel bad about it? Yep. Because she was no longer put in danger. Because they both had, the father was removed. My niece ended up divorcing him after she got her act cleaned up. She's still a nurse. And I'm totally okay with that. Was that black magic? I say that was gray. I did not direct it. I left it up to the universe. I didn't direct it at anybody in particular. I left it up to the divine. I left it up to Kali to mete out what justice she thought was fit to fit the crime. They both ended up getting arrested, processed, going through, a plea or, prosecution, and justice was meted out. Do I feel bad about it? No. Did I really suffer any big consequences? About 6 months later, I ended up breaking my leg. And I'm not going to say that that was directly related, but if it was, if I had to take a broken leg for that, okay, I'm fine. I took a broken leg with it. I've got a big rod down the middle of my leg to put my leg back together because I broke both bones in my leg. To me, it was like I was just kind of, clumsy, and I tripped over a rug in the bedroom, and the way that I fell was awkward, and I broke my leg. I broke my tib fib. So, if you are okay for getting whatever, karmic blowback or whatever you think for your magical actions, then okay. If you have to have this conversation with yourself before you do any kind of hex, curse, binding, vexing, crossing, whatever your practice calls it, whether it's hoodoo, conjure, witchcraft, heathenry, druidry, or whatever, you have to be okay. So remember, don't do anything in the magical world that you would not do in the mundane. Okay? Have that deep conversation with yourself. How far would you take it to do X, Y, and Z, to get this action of this person to stop? How far are you willing to go? How far are you willing to go to protect your home? How far are you going to go to protect your family? So after you have answered those questions, then we can get into videos 2 and 3. This one's already coming up on almost 30 minutes of discussion. And I want you to really take a hard look. The next video is going to be on what I call the passive magic, and that's protections and wards. Okay? The third video is going to be on hexing, cursing, and actual defensive, I've had enough of you and I'm going to strike back. Okay? So with that, my friends, feel free to ask me questions in the comment section. You know, have a respectful discussion. That's what I ask. Just please be respectful. I know this is an extremely contentious topic. It causes a lot of contention between traditional witches and Wiccans. Okay? Like I said, I still call myself a Wiccan. I still call myself a witch. And I don't allow others to dictate to me how to think, or to say, if you don't think the same way that I do, you're less valid. Because I left a religion that did just that to become a Wiccan and a witch. Stop and think about that. I was raised primitive Baptist. And if people didn't think the same way that they did, they were all going to hell. That included Catholics and everybody who, Jews and everybody who did not think the exact way that they thought. They were all going to hell. There's a reason I left a religion like that. I would hate for people who talk about being more open-minded and more open to humanity. I would hope that we would not be that narrow-minded in the pagan community. Everyone's viewpoint is valid. I just ask that everyone be respectful, okay? With that, my friends, that's it for part 1. As I said, part 2 is going to be on protections and wards. Part 3 is going to be on hexing and bindings and some of the darker stuff. And also how you can protect yourself, you know, from hexes. Okay? So with that, my friends, merry we did meet, merry we will part until we merry meet again. Be well and walk in love and light, everybody. Bye.